Hey everybody, I'm answering another question today. This is a question from Twitter and it is from Wintersnake. He asks, what are your thoughts on Christopher Nolan's interest in the Akira trilogy? This is a tough one. So for those of you who don't know, Christopher Nolan is interested in directing a live action version of Akira, and that is a very famous manga that came out quite a while ago, and it was turned into an anime film back in the 1980s and has since become this cyberpunk sci-fi animated classic that has sort of set the bar for great anime filmmaking, or just animated film in general. I'm not really going to talk too much about the original film because I did do a review of it a few months ago, so I'll just have the link for it down there if you haven't seen that review already. But what I really want to talk about is primarily Nolan's involvement in the project. And for people who are frequent viewers, you know I'm not the biggest Nolan fan. I never have been. I think that he is a wonderful filmmaker, as in he knows how to make a film, how to build tension, how to create something of a spectacle. And he makes it completely his own. He's one of the few directors out there, blockbuster directors, that is an auteur director, really has his own style. When you watch the movie, you know that's a Nolan movie. But the problem for me has always been the fact that he has never really struck me emotionally. It's like I'm watching people play chess, or like I'm watching some great architect trying to construct something really big. There are a lot of complex plot devices and intricate conceptual ideas going on, but it's just very cold and calculated. The characters to me are just not that interesting. They're very one-dimensional for the most part, and his dialogue is a real problem. That's probably my biggest problem with Nolan films. They're just so meandering. They're just a bunch of people trying to explain the philosophical symbolism in each scene. It's like they're going, oh, audience, do you know what we're doing here? This is a symbol for this, and it's a symbol for mankind in this. It's like, that to me is insulting to my intelligence, and it's insulting to audiences in general. It's like, we can figure this out on our own. We're not dumb. Plus, Akira, the film, I've never read the manga, but I've seen the film a million times, and it has just such a unique and powerful visual style that is so unlike anything I've ever seen before or since, that it's going to be tough to live up to that. It's just an amazing work of art. How do you create something that distances yourself from such a very visually arresting style? And also, how do you live up to that? So for those reasons, when I first heard this news, I was not that excited, but I am trying to be optimistic. Why, you may ask? I'll tell you. Because even though I think that Nolan would bring a very different flavor to Akira, I think that there are quite a few things about just the story of Akira that will play to Nolan's strengths, if you really think about it. Akira is very political. It's a social commentary. It's about humanity's relationship to technology and existence in general. And all of these things are things that Nolan has touched on in all of his films, or not all of them, but a lot of times in his films, they're kind of reoccurring themes. When I think of Akira, I think of anarchy, I think of social upheaval, and there's a lot of that in, say, a movie like The Dark Knight Rises from 2012, and that film is full of that kind of stuff. To me, I always say that that movie is like a modern interpretation of the French Revolution. Now, I did not like The Dark Knight Rises, if you remember from my review of that as well. I mean, I just thought it was a mess from beginning to end. I mean, there were some good things, but for the most part, I just did not like that movie. But if he can take those ideas that I mentioned before and bring them in, like rein them in and have more focus, it could really work. And he's also taken a stab at the sci-fi genre last year with Interstellar, which I know a lot of people had problems with that movie, including myself. It definitely had its flaws, but I actually liked that movie. It was one of the few times where I think Nolan was able to create characters that had emotion and sympathy that didn't come from a pre-existing story and world like Batman. But the big thing about this news that caught my attention is that he said he was interested in making a film trilogy, not just a single film. And for those of you who watched my review of Akira, the original film, you know that I love the film, but there's just, it is a mess. I mean, it's very choppy. There are a lot of plot holes, a lot of things that just don't add up because they tried to take this huge manga and basically just shove all of it into a 2-hour movie. So if Nolan were to really explore these characters and these themes and make it a 3-part series that really does kind of bring the full arc, it might actually be good. That's gonna be very different. I mean, when you think of Nolan's style compared to Otomo's, who directed Akira, I mean, it's a huge departure. I mean, when I think of Akira, the original anime film, I just think of like these African choral amazing pieces going on throughout, and I think of these Blade Runner influenced cityscapes, and I think of these kids with mohawks and spray paint and blood and guts spewing everywhere and just very chilling imagery. And then when I think of Nolan, I think of these really giant constructs made out of cold steel and characters in suits with no discernible personalities and music by Hans Zimmer that's just pounding the same note over and over in our heads to create tension. So overall, the two are very different, but different doesn't mean that it has to be bad, actually. Even though I am skeptical of Nolan, and I have been in the past, he has proven himself on numerous occasions as well. When I get past my initial dislike for maybe his style and the way that he writes his characters, and I really think about the themes going on in a lot of his movies and in Akira, there's something about that that says, you know what, this really could be something that is promising, very intriguing. And I guess if you're going to have a big blockbuster type director take on something this ambitious, Nolan might be one of the ones to consider. And so I'm going to choose not to be a hater this time. And if this does end up happening and he does end up making this series of films, then I'm just gonna go into it and try to be positive and try to just go in with the level of curiosity. I don't want to have any expectations, really. I try to go into most movies, you know, with a clear head, not having any expectations, because oftentimes when you do that, you tend to get disappointed, and also negativity is just draining and no fun. And let me know what you think. Are you yay or nay? Do you think he's a good choice or not? And if not, who do you think would be a better one? I'd like to know. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, the link is below, and you can also like my Facebook page in the link below that. Catch you next time.